we're talking about the macro. Let's bring it closer to home. And you're speculating where Bitcoin is going. Let's speculate a little bit about this 170,000 ETH. You're one of the few people that's actually met Richard. So,
Hmm.
you know him well. How does he play that 170,000 ETH? Just in the spirit of speculation. How does that play out? Does he use a little? Does he keep? Does he buy the bottom?
I
Where does
think
this
all
go?
of
You've
the
talked
above.
about this before.
I think all of the above. I think he's going to keep some. I think he's going to play some for the next cycle, and I think he's going to use some. But the thing with him is that he has so many accounts that have so much ETH, like Godwill and others, that he may kind of do some kind of like smoke and mirrors thing where he wants people looking at that, but then pumps it with some other hidden wallets. I'm not 100% sure what he's gonna do. But I was talking to Martin about it today, and I mean, if you saw like Martin's post today, like the dude's 100% serious. Like he will not sell until like he's that sure that that we're going to that level of glory that he's like I'm not selling until like Richard has 1 million views like on a live stream because he thinks it's going to be to that level of like buying like money coming in, and he's like basically that if you really think about it, like he could divvy up so many wallets of like 100 ETH, 100 ETH, 100 ETH. And if you think that ETH goes 6 7,000, 8,000, who knows, right? And even if he switches it to USD, like it's so much money that like everything will be so volatile, so crazy that people will just be bridging over like crazy because people will do anything at near the end of a cycle. If anybody sees anything that they believe can 2x, they will ape their whole bag. Okay, so I think that we could get to a point where Pulse Chain is that like vortex that everyone's like, this is a free 2x. This guy's got $1 billion and he's clearly going to pump it and like look at everything because nobody cares about like all the pain and like how many people like got shaken out or any of that stuff. Nobody cares when the thing's pumping, right? So like you imagine Hex at like 20, 25 cents. Do you think anybody who's in at 20, 25 cents or anything like gives a crap that somebody sold below a cent and they're out? They're like, see a loser, right? So that's just the way it is. It's like people think about the now and everything. So yeah, I think there's a good chance that that we see some glory. And like he is somebody that has pumped it many, many times. Like we've caught him on so many side wallets, like pumping or whatever. He also, even last cycle, he put up a buy wall at like of $20 million, and like he's bought his own tokens so much that it would be crazy. And he even bought after the court case was settled. So there, and that's what I was talking about yesterday. That like everything I know about Richard and everything that he has shown as a person when he got off scot free, he didn't have to do anything. He could have just been like, "See you losers," and like deleted his Twitter, right? What does he do? He one buys his tokens. Number two, he makes a video for everybody. So the guy constantly is giving you clues and like showing people like what's going to happen, but he's waiting for ETH to go up. Like to me that was always obvious. And I thought he wouldn't even like show his face until like ETH was up. So he even surprised me on that front. But yeah, I think that like betting against him is kind of silly. It feels like very asymmetric risk in crypto, especially with Hex below a cent.
I want to get back. This is amazing. And now we're sort of in this territory of Richard and Hex. A number of people have said to me, Jay, what about all the whales in Hex that have so much Hex?
Yes,
And
I'd love to talk
I
about that.
let's talk about that. Let's
Yeah,
talk about
no,
that.
no
Go
problem.
for it.
Because I literally was having this conversation, today, but with somebody. But yeah, the reality is like, yes, is there a good amount of people that have like over 100 million coins? Yes, that is 100% the case. However, most of these people have been, uber wrecked, and like a lot of them have not been in multiple cycles in crypto, to be of like the mind frame that they're probably like, from what I've seen, a lot of them are like mentally broken. And so when it hits their number, they're getting out. So these guys are not holding to get back to 100 million. And make no mistake, there was a lot of people that hit like, into the nine figures, like in USD portfolio value on the last time. And so I think a large amount of them will not, they'll be shaken out, call it like 3 to 10, 15 cents. Like most of those top guys will have nothing but dust left for, higher numbers than that. And then you also have to think that like, with those guys selling, relatively low, and then the FOMO that can ensue when, essentially like when, money is bridged over, or like people start speculating on Richard's buys. Like if you think about how big crypto is as a whole, and how much gains people are sitting on from like Bitcoin at like 200K, or ETH at like 8K, or like XRP, like if XRP is like $5 or plus or whatever, like people are already on a lot of gains, and now they're coming for a 2x. Okay, so some of that money will be offset by new people coming in, right? And so when you're thinking about it from like the perspective of like, oh my God, this guy has 100 million hex. Okay, well, if he sells 100 million hex at 5 cents, it's $5 million. Okay, calculate how much Richard can, even if he only uses like 40% of his bag at ETH at like 7,500, right? You absorb those guys, no problem, and that's not including all the people that. The thing that people don't realize is that when the market is manic is like it's like an infatuation, right? If you've ever dated a really beautiful woman, and you first start dating her, it's like everything about her, right? Like her hair, her eyes, like her smell, like everything's like, it's
Oh yes.
infatuating.
Oh
It's
yes.
like it
Oh
just like
yes.
sucks you in, and it's like it's basic. Like crypto is like that. When the market starts getting manic, it just sucks you in, and it's like you just feel like tingling on your skin almost, and so when you better believe that when that when that starts happening, much more people, like the amount of people that are in crypto right now are going to be like the 20%, and then everybody coming in is going to be the 80%. Okay, so there's always way more people that come in than is in right now. And so there'll be tons of people coming in, just found out about Richard, and then they're finding out all this stuff. So like they're getting the chronological order, right? So they're like, Richard Hart makes Hex does a 10,000x, it launches Pulsechain, but they're coming in after all the pain. So what do they care, right? Think about it. Hex and Pulse and Pulsex are like, all that stuff's over SAC. They don't care that it was down for a year, that it was down for 2-3 years. They care that
Totally.
it's like
Totally.
looking good now. And then also, oh, Richard beat the SEC. Oh, has a history of buying his coins. Oh, it looks like he's bridging some money over it potentially. Like, so like people don't realize that it's like we can be so biased from our experiences and being down for a certain amount of time and all that kind of stuff, but that doesn't matter. It literally doesn't matter.
I think you're touching a topic that's huge, and that's how people, we don't see the world as it is, we see it as we are.
Right.
And we're seeing the world through our own filters. And people think that the new people are going to really be, scavenging through the files, right, to find whatever dirt or that. They're not going to do that. And I can tell you,
Right.
you've been here
100%.
multiple cycles, Wendy's. I got in, February of 2021. I didn't know what was happening. I just knew there's money and I better get in to make it. I wasn't
And you
asking.
and
I
you
wasn't
did not
asking about
care if
audits. I
yeah,
didn't
you didn't,
care.
and you didn't care if somebody sold for a loss, right? And that they were down for 2 years and sold for a loss. You don't care because you bought and you're up because now it's the good times, right? So like people just
Yes.
don't care. And yeah, it's just so easy to think, people are like, oh, who's ever going to touch, and then it's all of a sudden, bam. But,
Bam.
Richard has preserved the treasury. He didn't like panic sell or anything like that. He did buy high. Okay, we have to, it is what it is. He did buy high, but he's bought high before, right? And when he bought high before, he bought Bitcoin at $32, right? So and that turned out to be fine. He just held it, right? And I think the same thing of his ETH trade. It'll be fine. He just needs to hold it.
Hermit, this is really very interesting. Guys, I really think that one of the biggest mistakes and misconceptions is that people coming in are going to have all the back history and backlog that you have, and they're not. They really are not going to have. People, oh my God, who's going to come to Pulse Chain? Oh, Richard Hart. He's been doing, the outrage marketing, this, that, the other. Nah.
They like all the scams that happened in the past. There, no one doesn't even know about them. You know.
Yeah, it's a fresh slate with new people, and they're going to see money, and they're going to see billionaire, and they're going to see. I mean, President Trump made it on the back of his TV show. Richard's not dumb. He understands marketing. He really, really understands marketing. By the way, could we share if you want to? What did you talk to Richard about? I've always been curious about that when you met him.
Honestly, I don't even remember. But I've met him more than once, but I don't even remember what we talked about. It wasn't crypto though.
Interesting, interesting. Good
I can tell you
people,
what his favorite topic is:
go for it. We want to hear about Richard. Go for it.
women.
Not surprised. I think the film made that very clear. Made
Ah,
that very, very clear.
you have no idea. The man is obsessed.
Oh my gosh. So, well, one topic that you didn't cover is, what do you think could be his play on his treasury? You think he uses most of it? You only think he uses half? Does he extend it? Oh, here's another question for you.
Sure.
Here's another question for you. And I hear this from people, is why would Richard, I get this. Richard doesn't have to send Hex past all-time high. In fact, Richard has said that it's a new chart, and the new
Hmm.
chart started low. So if he gets it to 30 cents, it's a 10x. What's your thought about that? Why would or wouldn't Richard want to send this past
Well,
all-time
yeah.
high?
I mean, okay. So like, you have to understand that it's all about it's about framing the question and framing like what you're talking about. Okay, so like he knows. Remember, the guy is Mensa. He's very smart. He knows that many people who've been in Hex are considering 55 cents the all time high. However, especially when you're trying to get people to like focus economic energy on one coin, that's why he's saying like, hey, look at PHEX. It's a new chart. It is a new chart, right? And so when we get over 4.1 cents, right, we're making theoretical new highs. That means that he can say Hex is at all time high. Hex is at all the PHEX is at all time high. It's just about framing. It's not like he knows what the consensus think, but it's just about like framing. And it's about there's many things that you can post to make that are the same thing, but you can make one looks better than the other. Okay, sometimes a 4 hour chart looks worse than a daily chart, right? And vice versa. So it's all about framing. What is the framing that he wants, and he's going to obviously want the most bullish framing. But to answer the question, like my gut thesis is that I think a reasonable target for ETH is about like 7,500. I mean, he has a lot, so he can potentially move the market a little bit. So I'm not 100% sure exactly how he does it, but I would say that if he can get 1.2, 1.4, something like that billion, that he would potentially use like maybe 400 million and do like 200 million in Pulse, 200 million in PulseX. And then that alone would send Ink and Hex, to the moon. But then if he wants Hex to hit a certain price target in his head, whether it's $1, whether it's $2, he can always use that. Like he doesn't have to use any more than that, and he can just ratio send Hex up. So that would give him $1 billion to potentially buy the bottom of Bitcoin, or farm something, or whatever he wants to do. I'm not sure what his like mindset is. He might want some money to protect himself from the Finland stuff. So yeah, it's I'm not 100% sure, but I think that regardless of what he does, there's enough money to send something like Hex to $1.
And Wendy's, you're using a conservative target. You and I, our
Yeah,
friend John Wick, he's talking about 10 to 15,000
it's
dollar ETH.
totally possible. Yeah, it's totally possible. It
And
just
John
it
and
really.
John is a smart guy. John is
Oh
a
yeah,
very smart guy.
yeah. He's a
You know,
financial advisor by
10,
day.
10 to 15,000 ETH. Ooh, man.
Yeah, so like in the case of something like that, I mean, yeah, it would be absolutely insanity. Like what could happen? I mean, the euphoria, you could cut it with a knife. It would be like that kind of manic. Like people wouldn't be sleeping and stuff. But Yeah, and like again, my stuff is conservative as well. Like he could use more. I like to be on the more conservative side, right? Because if it gets more bullish, like, hey, cool, awesome.
So let's bring it down. Let's just kind of trail back in. If Hex goes parabolic, what will happen with Sparta?
Well,
How are
it's
these connected?
it's basically the same thing, right? So it's like I was saying that if he pumps Pulse and Pulsex, like Hex goes to the moon. Because of Hart's law, which basically states that if you have a liquidity pair, if you're pumping the one asset, it's bringing the other asset up as well because it's valued in the other thing, right? So, for example, like if you think about it in reverse, when the dollar devalues, right, like gold, Bitcoin can go up, right? So that's why, like when the DXY breaks down, that's when crypto starts doing well because they're valued in dollars. Okay. So that means that they go up, as in you get more dollars and stuff. So if Hex goes up and there's Sparta and Hex are, tied together, it goes up. Now, the other thing, and the reason why I built, the game theory like it is because I believe that during this like crazy mania that could happen with RH is that the volume could be absolutely insane. So if you were in Pulsechain the first week, we flipped to Binance on volume. And so
That's true.
with that kind of volume on the cores and stuff, we would see massive burning on Sparta. It would become super deflationary versus Hex, and you could just see the ratio skyrocket. Even if Hex was in just like a normal kind of like range, where it was like, let's say it was bouncing in like the 20, 30, 40 cent range. It was just kind of like going up and going down, like whales were getting in, whales were getting out, people were getting in, people were getting out. Like in that situation where there's just so much money sloshing back and forth, it would just do amazing, and PTGC would as well. It's not just us that would be doing good, but really the chain would just be benefiting like crazy.
Incredible. Guys, are you all ready for this? I mean, this is
Well,
going
I
to
can tell
be
you that most people are not. It takes a few cycles, I think. I think you have to because each cycle has been different. So this would be the third alt season, right? And so people that were here for 2021 but weren't here for 2017, it was a different experience, and this is surely to be a different experience than both of those. So I don't think that people are ready, but yeah, it's going to be it will be insane. And my thesis has always been that the reason that these things will all happen is because of fear and greed. It's just that I really believe that the altcoin market itself runs off like pure fear and greed. And for that greed to manifest itself, you really do need an easier monetary policy from the Fed. And they're basically at the end of quantitative tightening. So I think we're just about there. And Bitcoin getting to the point where it's ready to make new all-time highs, it also will pull stuff up via Hart's law. And it's doing that with ETH. And so you can have ETH and Bitcoin that are tied together, right? And so when ETH is like, it wasn't looking good from like a USD perspective, the ratio was doing really bad. But you had Bitcoin like going up. It like can create a chart structure on ETH that actually like starts to look favorable, and then it starts to turn around, right? So yeah, and that was one of the reasons we launched Sparta at the bottom, because it's like, okay, now we can chop. People can get out. We can onboard new people, but we're chopping at 10 cents. We're up a lot. We have lots of liquidity, and so like a pressure cooker at 10 cents is awesome, because I see Sparta go into many dollars if what I'm saying is correct. So it's like, hey, let the people who want off. We're still sub 600 holders. Let's onboard new people to Sparta, and then as my thesis is that we're going to get tons of people. So if you listen to Martin was saying that like 1 million people could view Richard's live stream, and that would be like his indication. If that's the case, then like we're getting hundreds of thousands, if not over 1 million people to come to Pulsechain potentially. And so in that scenario, we just need to onboard a small percentage of that, and we're in Valhalla. So and that was always my thesis as well. So I'm glad that he shares that.
so just to unpack a little bit, you've talked about Metcalfe's law and how early we are all at
Oh, you don't
Sparta.
want to go? Don't go
Uh,
there, Jay Gold. They're not ready.
all right. They're not ready.
It's seriously like I can't even give the numbers because they just sound ridiculous, you know. Like, but it is true that like when you have, when you have not that many people into a coin, and you're able to get to, thousands and thousands of holders, like things start to look really really good. And then when those coins are priced in coins that you believe can go up, I mean, think about it. Like Hex, to $1 is 100x from here. They should be in Pulsechain, and I think that we are an ecosystem that, like, we care about privacy, we care about decentralization, we care about cheap fees and all that stuff. So like Pulsechain is a great place to be. I'm happy if you're buying the course and participating in the ecosystem.
That is I think this is a beautiful tone to end in. What do you think, Wendy's? Till next time.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
But I feel Pulsechain is a lot more organic, real
It
community,
is.
real people. Um, you know,
DeFi on Pulsechain is like it blows my mind. I mean, I know why Pulsechain's gate kept, and has nothing to do with Richard Hart. I mean, it has to do with the fact that it's just it's code. Like he used to always preach. There's no connection to a company, and this is like as true DeFi as you can get. There's no Coinbase behind this shit. There's nobody you can control behind Pulsechain, and that's why it's gate kept. I mean, obviously, the wheels are starting to come off. I think they're not gonna be able to gatekeep us forever, but yeah, unfortunately, they've held it down for quite a long time. Think about where we could be at right now without the SEC bullshit and Interpol bullshit. The 3x on the sack rate, or maybe more. Who knows?
totally. Yeah, it made me feel as well. I mean, not speaking badly about Base. Obviously, people are doing this for marketing purposes, and it works, and it's working. But like the experience I got is even big projects with thick liquidity. When you actually go into like dex screener, it's a lot of like spamming microtransactions, and then
Yep.
maybe one trade or two with high volume on a low like slippage like uh pool, on V4 or something, just to really fake it, so some
Yeah.
probably guys with deep pockets, they can like put on the liquidity, spam the network to pretend that there's like big volume and huge number of transactions, but there's like little to no community, real
Yeah.
like organic people and stuff. It's very botted,
Yeah.
but it works for the marketing purposes, and we should do the same.
I
It's
know.
like a strategy to be high on the rankings, but it's kind of deceiving when you see like I feel like Pulse Chain, it's where is this you said, like how come we're like so gate kept, not listed anywhere, not on any like major centralized exchange, not on any major ranking site, and yet like on X, when Charles Hoskinson posts something, when Vitalik posts something, it's just a wave of people like real people, real accounts, like screaming like Pulse Chain.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I posted the other day that cypherpunks are dying for a reason, because they are. And as far as I see it, the only cypherpunks left are pulse chain people.
Exactly. That's
You
what I was
know?
just saying. That's what we were just talking about before everybody started coming on. Me and Fajari. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like Pulsechain's really the only platform left with true DeFi. It really is. I mean,
yeah,
And that's a good thing that's not listed in anywhere, right? Like when it goes up, it's actually going up for real. It's not
yeah. It's
paper
actually, yeah,
profits.
yes, yeah, because the exchange listing situation. I mean, even Richard Hart, is making comments about exchanges suck, but we seem to need to be one on one. Like
Well, the problem is that getting on to, like, for us, getting on and off a pulse chain is simple child's play, right? For us, but that's because we're here all the time and we know how to do it. For everybody else, it's not easy, dude.
I got the show and tell vote.
When we all get our millions in Pulse Chain, right? How are we going to cash out? We need our own on ramp. It sounds like
We do.
because
We have one.
which one? The
Coast.
0x, the
Yeah.
Coast.
Yeah.
Well, that
Yeah,
doesn't
but
work for me here in Canada.
we'll have more. It's just a matter of time. The way I see it, the dominance can only go up for so long, right? At some point, people gonna rotate those profits and try to get more gains on something else, right? It's
But
just natural.
that's how the game goes, like in crypto.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
that's
So
what Profeta was saying.
So
That's
Ethereum
what
is
these
gonna
guys
just
are.
lag behind a little bit, but eventually those people are gonna put their money in Ethereum. Right? We just got something special here, and more characters say like that Tiger guy or other people who come from the outside and they gave us hell, right, as much as they could, and we managed to turn them as to a part of the team. These people are gonna be they're gonna put even harder effort to get people win, right? Because now they believe on the messaging. It's not just we do need a new batch of fresh faces to propel this, right? Because people just get used to the usual suspects and then they just take them with a grain of salt, right?
Yeah, no, I definitely feel that. And I think even throughout this last couple of months, there's been, at least on X, there's been, a couple of people that have been, really trying to, make content and, push themselves further in the algorithm and stuff. Like, I like when, the community is really trying to get out there because, like you said, the echo chamber can only bounce off each other so much before it's just the same capital coming in. And the whole objective is to get new capital.
You see that's bullish. That means he entered a realm through ayahuasca, and that's how high Richard Hart vibrates. He was able to see it in a different dimension.
Shit.
That's a good point. That's
Up
a
and,
good
up and
point.
to the left.
So then I took the liquid. They gave me a liquid, right? And I found that ayahuasca liquid pretty tasty. I took it, and there's about 10, 12 people in there, and they had this disgust on their face because it's supposed to be very sour. I drank it. I thought, this is nice. They were all shocked. Anyway, half an hour later, when I started tripping, I saw loads of logos and symbols. At that point, I did not recognize them as being, belonging to crypto, right? I didn't understand what were these logos. I was thinking maybe they're coming from a subconscious mind and it's from my childhood, like sweet Skittles. And, I was thinking maybe it's got some relevance to some sweets that I had it when I was a kid, but it didn't make sense. A year later, when I introduced to Hex by a friend, and I went on to that site where you see all the bubbles, crypto bubbles of Hex going up 10% and XRP going down. That exact thing I saw in my ayahuasca experience. So I had that experience, and then a friend introduces me to Hex. And when I heard the word Hex, I said, you know what, there's something in it. This sounds very kind of magical. And he explained to me about Richard Hart. Here's this guy. His Hex had recently gone up to 10,000x. He's going to come out with a Pulsechain ecosystem pretty soon. So I didn't think twice. I said, you know what? I don't know nothing about crypto, how to do things with crypto. I didn't know nothing. I didn't know about staking. I didn't know anything about the liquidity pools. So slowly, I started, devouring all the information from the YouTube. I started making the connections and the dots regarding how to buy X from Matcha XYZ, and then suddenly I was involved with a team of people in the
Did you say you
YouTube
hadn't
space.
heard of Hex or Pulsechain when you saw these visions? Is that right?
No, I didn't know what the hell they were. I was thinking they're probably linked with my childhood because I've done hypnosis, and hypnosis generally you deal with preconditioned ideas, beliefs, and habits. So I ultimately thought they were connected to my childhood. Maybe I've seen these images and they were showing up as abstract. Because only a year later that I seen they weren't absolute. They were absolute images of Pulsechain ecosystem. The logos, I straight away recognized the logos.
Wow.
When I saw the bubble, I go, wow. And I told my friend, I said, that's exactly what I'd seen. I've seen these bubbles bursting.